Okay, today's Faith Mystery podcast is on the question, was Jesus all-knowing? Given the fact that he was, God, so should have known everything, right? We'll explore that question today. Okay, so again, the question is, was Jesus all-knowing? So, you're taught that Jesus was God and man, both at the same time. And, being that he was God, he should know everything. Let me just give you some examples of things that kind of support the fact that, Jesus was God. So at the age of 12, he knew who his real father was. He was in a temple talking with some of the priests and scribes, and his parents had lost track of him. And when they came back a couple of days later and then found him there, they said, "Why weren't you with us when we left?" And he said something to the effect, "I was in my Father's house." So he was referring to his Father in heaven. Technically, Joseph was like a stepfather, if you think about it. Mary was his mother. God was really his father. So that kind of indicates that he was understanding his relationship with God and how he and later in the book of John, he says that I and the Father are one. So even at the early age of 12, he's got this understanding. There's another story when he first sees who became his disciple, Nathaniel. And he compliments Nathaniel about being a really honest person with no deceit. And Nathaniel says, "How do you know who I am?" And Jesus says, "Well, I saw you under the fig tree." And Nathaniel is immediately humbled and, bows down before him and recognizes that he's God. We don't know what happened under that fig tree. Something really personal and important must have happened. And Nathaniel must have thought he was by himself, that no one could see him. But somehow, with God's divine knowledge, he did know about that and mentioned it to Nathaniel. And this was big enough in Nathaniel's mind to make him having divine knowledge. We know that when Jesus talked to the Samaritan woman, he mentioned some things about her that no one else would have known. And one of the things was that she had had 5 husbands, and that she was trying to deceive him by saying she had no husband. And that story has a very impactful ending to it, because she was so blown away by him knowing all these intricate details about her that no one else knew, that she ended up inviting a lot of her friends and neighbors to come and see Jesus. We know that Jesus knew that Lazarus had already passed away before the disciples found out about it. And we also know that even though Jesus knew Lazarus was dead or was ill, he did not go and heal Lazarus before he died, because he had a greater purpose in mind, which was raising Lazarus from the dead. We know that Jesus knew about a colt that would be available for him to ride on for what we call Palm Sunday, this triumphant entry into Jerusalem, which a week later, would end in his death. He's instructed the disciples about how to find this colt and bring it to him. We know that the night that what we call Maundy Thursday, when Jesus instituted the Lord's Supper, we know that he knew that Judas was going to betray him. He mentions, whoever sticks their bread into this dip the same time I do, he's the one. And Judas did that. We also know that Peter would deny Jesus 3 times, but that Jesus predicted that Peter would do that. We know that when on that Thursday night when things got really bad, spilling into Friday morning that as they came to arrest Jesus, all of his disciples fled. And Jesus had predicted that that would happen. He also told his disciples that he would be beaten and tortured and crucified up until death, and then rise from the dead. And so he had told the disciples all these things would happen, which shows you he had divine knowledge. So does that make him all-knowing about everything? Well, there are some things he didn't know. Okay? So, for example, there was a woman who touched his garment and was healed, and he didn't know who it was. He talks about not knowing when Judgment Day is going to be. That's up for the Father to know. When he went into the Garden of Gethsemane and he asked God to spare him from death, he said, "Not my will, but your will." Well, if he knew that he was definitely 100% going to have to die, why would he ask God to change that? So there must have been some uncertainty in his mind. So here's the thing. It's not black and white. So it's just like a lot of these faith mysteries, people think they know the answer, but they don't really necessarily know it. It's a little bit mysterious how Jesus was both God and man. Knew a lot of things that demonstrated he was God, performed a lot of miracles demonstrating that he was God, but at the same time, he suffered like a man. And there were some things that he didn't know. I always wondered like how and when Jesus came to know things. And one of my thoughts is that there was numerous times that Jesus would go up a mountainside and pray, or he would go off all by himself with no one else and would pray. And, why do we pray? We're talking to God. Why would he pray? Talking to the Father. And I just wonder if it was during those times that the Father would divulge to him what he wanted him to know. And it wasn't necessary for him to know everything. Okay. But there were some things that he did divulge to him to demonstrate to the people that were following him that he really was God. So we don't totally understand it, but you know what? It's okay for things to be mysterious. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I love you all. We'll see you next week.